Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. This is Mike Drotis, Bible teacher and preacher, talking to you about the last days. This lesson today is a special bonus lesson. It will be strictly on the Nephilim and on a little bit about Enoch. It's not enough to have an entire lesson, and so I wanted to leave this out of our classroom setting and just have this be devoted strictly to our YouTube viewers. By the way, if you are viewing this on YouTube, thanks for watching. Please subscribe so you can get all the different messages that I preach about the end times. I really do appreciate all the good reports that I've heard and the encouragement as well. So I want to start off today in Genesis chapter 5, once again talking about Enoch. Enoch was the seventh from Adam. He was the father of Methuselah, and Methuselah was the grandfather of Noah. And in Genesis chapter 5, looking in verse 22, we read, "After he begot Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and had sons and daughters. So all the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him." God took him. Enoch walked with God. That's an understatement. Enoch was a prophet of God. Enoch had visions of heaven, visions of hell, visions of the last days, visions of the millennial kingdom, and more. He's mentioned 4 times in the Bible, twice here in Genesis, once in Hebrews chapter 11, the heroes of faith, and then Jude quotes from Enoch Jude quotes Enoch in Jude's book. He quotes Enoch's book. By the time Enoch was on the earth, Satan had been working hard at destroying God's creation, especially his crown jewel, the humans. And in Genesis chapter 6, we see that after just 7 or 8 generations, the corruption of man and evil was so bad on the earth that God was going to have to do something that he really didn't want to do. So Genesis chapter 6, looking at verse 1, "Now it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose." Now remember, when we read this expression, the sons of God, we always use Bible to interpret Bible. And in Genesis, or in Job chapter 38, we read that the sons of God was talking about the angels, or the angels were the sons of God. And these angels saw that the daughters of men, that they were beautiful. And in verse 4, "There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were mighty men, who were of old, men of renowned. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." So we see here that the sons of God, or the fallen angels, were mating with humans. Satan convinced some of the watchers, or as verse 1 says, the sons of God, to do something that was strictly forbidden by God. Here's where the book of Enoch fills in some details. When Satan and his angels were cast out of heaven, they were sent to the earth, and they were captured here in the earth. No longer could they go visit heaven. No longer could they even leave the confines of the earth. They were stuck here on the earth and in the atmosphere above the earth. When God created man, he gave him dominion over the earth. That included Satan. That's why God told Adam, keep the garden, protect the garden. From who? From the watchers, from the fallen ones. Satan caused man to sin, and man lost that dominion. Satan then became the god of this world, in this world system. But even in the early days in Genesis chapter 5 and 6, we read that there were men who still worshiped God, and they walked with God, men like Enoch. So Satan decided to push the envelope and convinced some, not all the angels that had fallen away with him, but he convinced some of his angels to mate with the humans. Not all the angels did, but Enoch writes that 200 of them decided to. Enoch also mentions in his book that God specifically forbid this from going on. He specifically forbid angels from mating with humans. But they decided they were going to do it anyway. And when they did, the Nephilim were born, the giants were born, the men of renown were born. Once angels began to mate with humans, they were able to genetically alter or corrupt the DNA of man. That's what Satan was trying to accomplish. They didn't even stop with men, but the Bible says that all flesh was corrupted. All flesh was being infected. Genesis chapter 6, verse 11. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. All flesh, animals, birds, everything had been corrupted genetically by these fallen angels. Enoch writes, now after the angels did this, they had remorse. And so the leader of these 200 angels who left their heavenly estate, these sons of God, and mated with these daughters of men, the leader, his name was Azazel, asked Enoch to go to God on their behalf. These angels realized that they were in trouble. They did something really bad, and so they wanted God to forgive them. Enoch did. He went to God. He had access to God. This was a prophet of God, and he did, and God said no. And that he would, in fact, that he would destroy all those giants. He would destroy the entire earth with a flood years from then. Then God does something to these 200 angels that the Bible talks about. But often we're not sure what it means. But turn to 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. God had specifically told these angels not to mate with humans, but they refused to listen to him. And when they did, they were going to pay the ultimate penalty. God removed them from the board, removed them from the game. Look at 2 Peter 2:4. For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of 8 people, a preacher of righteousness. So we read here that God took these angels who sinned, these demonic 200 demonic angels who sinned, and he took them and he put them and chained them in dungeons and darkness and reserved them for their judgment. They're no longer roaming this earth. And when he did that, that stopped all the other angels from ever thinking about mating with humans again. This brings us to our time period. You're saying, well, how does that have to do with end times? Look at Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24. Jesus says something very interesting. But as the days of Noah were, so also will be the coming of the Son of Man. Jesus said that just as the days of Noah, just as the time period that was right when Noah was on the earth, he will come back. That will be a sign that he will be coming back. Is there evil on the earth right now? Absolutely. But also there is genetic manipulation occurring once again, tampering with human DNA. Satan knows that the best way to stop God is to corrupt all of mankind. He thinks that if he can do this, God won't come back. Why would God come back to a corrupted society where they're not even human any longer? That's what Satan's plan is. So what Satan has to do now is figure out another way to corrupt the human DNA, to infect the human DNA, to make humanity or mankind not even what God first designed them to be. And that's what he's doing right now. You may say, do you know how he's doing it? Yeah, I have a good idea. But that's for another lesson. Today I just wanted to give you a little more information behind the scenes on the Nephilim, the giants, Enoch, and the end times. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. We'll see you next time as we continue to put the puzzles pieces together, uncovering the whole picture of the last days. God bless you. I appreciate everything you do for me and your prayers and your support and your kind words.